This video is going to be a bit more than my typical photo mode reviews. Yes, we will be talking about this masterfully done photo mode, but I also want to reminisce on this game in its totality. I remember the first time this game was announced, I really wasn't sure about it. I'll be honest, at the time I didn't feel too drawn to the samurai aesthetic, but what actually sold me on this game was this. If you've played this game, you probably noticed it. If not, what you just saw was one of many examples of the game's dedication to what I'll call organically driven gameplay. Instead of a mini-map often used by other open-world games, Ghost of Tsushima decided to let the wind guide your objective markers. This was the thing that had me go, yep, I'm pre-ordering this right now. To this day, no game quite comes close to Tsushima's methods of keeping the player engaged with the world itself. And what a world to behold. Playing this game in 2024 still feels ahead of its time, but to imagine this first launched in 2020, it's easily one of the prettiest games to launch that year, and it holds up strong today. There's a lot that's been said about this game that I don't need to repeat, so I will hone in on what I think makes this game as dynamic and beautiful as it is. Motion. All things are in motion in Tsushima, no matter where you look or what you're doing. Not only does this aid the game's overall aesthetic value, but it has poetic and narrative value too. Life is in motion, and nothing is ever set. Just as our protagonist, Jin Sakai, is ever changing, so too is the environment. This makes even the most basic views stunning, and the most lackluster walkways have energy. My mouth just drops every time I boot up this game. And what would a stunning world be without the creative cinematography to match it? Whatever team is in charge of the cinematic and overall camera positioning has my utmost respect. As a person whose full part and hobby time job involves crafting video content, this game is an absolute inspiration. This goes beyond the cinematic too. Duels feel cinematic. Riding your horse feels cinematic. And even crafting unique haikus feels cinematic. And let me linger on that aspect of the game for just a moment, the haiku. The in-game haikus are such a lovely feature that, to my recollection, I really can't think of any other game that's achieved what Tsushima does. These are moments during an otherwise action-packed game that ask the player to slow down. This isn't some silly mini-game to distract the player. No, this is an actual, at least for me, moment of meditation in the real world. It was so refreshing to play for an hour and then end my session with a haiku that felt wholly my own, since it allows the player to choose what they're writing about. This paired with the incredible score, and I cannot state that enough, it is an incredible musical composition. That, the visuals, it's really a powerful thing for a game to ask the player to engage in. I think the haiku speaks to Ghost of Tsushima as a whole too. Some gameplay is designed to feel good, and that's all. In fact, I'd argue like 95% of games are designed this way. I'll use God of War as an example because I adore God of War. So God of War has an incredible story, and the gameplay is fun. Those two things are very separate, and they work wonderfully. However, while it's fun, the gameplay does not necessarily reinforce the narrative. This isn't a bad thing at all. Again, most games do this, and it's fine. Story and gameplay do not need to be intertwined to such a degree, but when a game does manage to do so, it's magical. Elements like the haiku act as a direct link to let the player feel what Jin is trying to feel and how he's trying to find peace. The way combat can be used to physically alter the way enemies react to you, and even down to the way Sucker Punch designed the input for sheathing your sword by swiping the touchpad. Sorry to you soon-to-be mouse and keyboard players, you'll miss out on that one. But it's little things like that that give it a physicality in the real world, makes you feel attached. These examples and more, to me, really reinforce the way this game asks the player to engage with the gameplay on a deeper level than just mindless button inputs. There are a lot of things that Tsushima wants you to engage with on a thinking level, and I admire that. Speaking of admiration, let's talk about the photo mode. I'll be candid with anyone watching. I'm terrified making this video. I'm terrified recording this audio right now. When I started this channel, I knew one day I would be talking about Ghost of Tsushima. It's practically one of the first games to make me really fall in love with virtual photography. I've been so nervous to craft a video about a game I adore so much, but I'm glad it's happening. The photo mode is, in a word, transcendent. And I mean that. It's more than a photo mode. It's a window to this world. It's a cinematic tool to capture and experience Tsushima in mesmerizing and just amazing ways. I think the best thing to do is quickly speedrun some of the offerings and then focus a little bit more on the important tools from there. There's a great field of view slider, tilt, and wonderful depth of field controls. We've got a nice set of filters, some of which isolate the reds and yellows, which can really make for some creative shots with ease. I love that. There's also a time of day slider and an option to change the cloud positions and an option to change the weather. It's amazing and so useful. And this next one is rare for me to engage with. The aspect ratios and stamps are really nice. I often found myself doing a lot of shots and video using the 32:9 aspect ratio. Again, this is rare for me, but I became quite obsessed with this hyper narrow framing. I sometimes had to remind myself to turn that off when making this video. The stamps are also great. While I don't put them on most of my shots, this was one of the first times I turned one of these stamps on in a photo mode and went, whoa, I think my image actually looks better. Something about the text, positioning, color, the boldness of it all, and obviously the sweet hand-painted Japanese text made a lot of the shots look like film posters. There are other nice adjustments too, like Jin's facial expressions, his dirtiness level, and a fun inclusion of sword glint, which can give your sword a little edge. Now onto the really impressive stuff. So I said earlier that this photo mode is more than that, and where that really comes into play is in this option right here. Animate environment is something I hadn't even thought about until playing Ghost of Tsushima in 2020. This, paired with other features, hands down makes this photo mode so transcendent and versatile, especially for video creators. The other features that aid in this are the particle system and the wind options. The particle system is something I would like to see in every single photo mode. This can transform a scene into something radically different and more dynamic, and there are so many options, from leaves to fireflies to falling ash. This can change the mood of the scene in seconds. A small tip, by the way, for the particles. Try turning down the intensity between 5 and 15. I found that this lower region felt a bit more natural and less cluttered. The wind is also useful, allowing you to change the speed and direction. As a fanatic of wearing capes in video games, this was kind of a dream come true. Too often in my photos, the cape is blowing in the most unflattering way possible. Not in Tsushima, though. I could always get the cape flowing in just the right direction, and this affects everything too, by the way. The particles, the trees, the grass. It's so clear that the team had video production in mind when making this photo mode, and I'm really thankful for it. They also included a keyframe camera system, allowing you to craft complex camera maneuvers in seconds. And a fun little touch is the ability to lay music underneath your footage. While I didn't use this often because I do all of my editing in post, one could make a really comprehensive video using just the living environment, keyframe camera, and the music. This photo mode is so novel and so empowering. I felt like a documentarian playing this game. As I said before, all things are in motion, so it doesn't matter where you point your camera, you will find something worth capturing. I admire this game so much, and with the PC release coming out soon, I hope a lot more people can engage with this title. If you make anything yourself, take any photos, video, please share it with me at photomodereviews@gmail.com. And that's it. Ghost of Tsushima means a lot to me. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Thanks for watching, and until next time.